human progress is being redefined in 2025. How we learn, how we grow, and navigate a world that is in constant transformation. As we just heard, the ETS Human Progress Report reminds us that while innovation is accelerating at an extraordinary pace, our collective responsibility must grow just as fast. Because progress by its very nature must be inclusive. It must be human-centered. And above all, it must be shared in order to be truly meaningful, and that is exactly why we are all here. And yet, insight on its own isn't enough. Insight has to be followed by action. It must evolve into impact. That starts by turning bold observations into grounded, scalable solutions. So it's one thing, obviously, to get out there and map the terrain, but it's another thing entirely to walk the road, to bring others with us, to make the journey possible for all. So let's now hear from those who are rolling up their sleeves, leaders, problem solvers, and change makers who are working every day to build a more equitable global future. Please join me in welcoming your moderator, Mark Barton, and his wonderful panel who will dive into all of this for us.
Right. Welcome back, everyone. We are gently strolling to our positions, and then I'm going to ask Benjamin to give us a nice scene setter before we kick off this panel, the Equity and Access Town Hall, Engineering the Great Equalization. So we have a lot to talk about. 7 panelists, 30 minutes. Good luck. I'm the time police, and if you go over too much, I'm going to be saying the buzzer, okay? Okay, let's get cracking. Benjamin Krause, Executive Director, Becker Friedman Institute for Economics, University of Chicago, from the United States. Take it away, sir.
Thank you so much. And they all lived happily ever after the end.
That's it. That was our 30 minutes.
So, 10-year-old Henry looks up at me, all smiles, as he triumphantly claps the book shut, having just successfully read to me an entire fairy tale without any help whatsoever. I'm visiting him in rural Kenya, and even though we're not that far from Nairobi, his school is basically a shack. It lacks pretty much everything my own 10-year-old daughter, Satya, enjoys in her classroom back home in Chicago. But Henry's school wouldn't be that unusual in almost every single low-income country around our world, where 90% of 10-year-olds would not be able to read that fairy tale to me. Now, what sets Henry's classroom apart is that they've adopted a certain approach to learning called teaching at the right level, which, as you probably have guessed, means meeting students where they are, and then in the more dynamic versions, following them at their own pace. But this is obvious, right? We know that this is necessary. This is clearly necessary, just like textbooks are necessary for classrooms. But no, actually, in fact, one of my colleagues at the University of Chicago, Nobel laureate Michael Creamer, found when he was working with schools just down the road from Henry that when he gave textbooks to classrooms, it didn't have any effect on learning on average at all. And which of us remember hearing about that one laptop per child program? I mean, when I first heard about this, I thought it was going to be transformative, but it too has failed to show the returns to education that we all were expecting. But on the other hand, teaching at the right level, thanks to researchers like Pratham's Rukmini Banerjee and another of my colleagues, Rachel Glenister, has shown to be incredibly cost-effective. By rigorously testing it, they've found that investing something like $100 returns education levels like sending kids to school for 3 years in places like Singapore or Finland. And so, as we're sitting down to think about this great equalization, what I want us all to keep in mind is we need to start with scale at hand and then follow the data where it leads. Because there are too many of us who aren't in this room that aren't facing the opportunities that this world is about to offer. And their reality demands of us to seek out the most cost-effective ways of improving education for all of us, and then scaling it to reach as many of us as possible, so that each 10-year-old can share that fairy tale with their family.
Thank you. That's a big round of applause. Ben took a 17-hour flight to give that speech. That was good energy. We've all got to match that energy. Pam, you're far away, but I can see you. I'll keep waving at you so we can keep that connection. So I'm just going to very quickly introduce everybody. We've got Dr. Fahd Al-Dosari, the CEO of JSTAT, Saudi Arabia. Her Excellency, Dr. Hala Al-Tuwaidri, President, Saudi Human Rights Commission here in Saudi Arabia. Dr. Ashwani Agarwal, Global Head, Skills Policy, System and Digitalization at the ILO, the International Labour Organization. Dr. Jushan Park, CEO of DQ Institute from Singapore. We're smiling because we did some pronunciation guides before, and I don't know whether I massacred it, but it's okay. Jane Rexworthy, Chair Founder, UK Skills Partnership, People First International from the UK, and Pam Sands, Member of the Board, World Employment Confederation, Belgium. Got there. Right. Let's go.
Let's go.
Are we ready? So first question to everyone. Let's keep it snappy. Let's keep it snappy because it's all about equalization. To frame this debate, we'll just go down the line. You pass it down the line. To frame this debate, please share a perspective on what equalization means in your domains. Go.
I'll just build right off of that. Every one of the 10-year-olds in this world has the opportunity to not only read, but to take advantage of what we all are talking about at this conference, the true capabilities possible for humanity.
I'll answer it in statistic office. So providing accurate, comprehensive, and timely data and statistics that covers all groups and regions in all nations, which can support creating opportunities, access to service, and access to economic opportunities to all.
Your Excellency.
Well, create conditions where everyone, regardless of background or identity, to have the equal opportunity to learn, grow, and participate back to development. And to achieve that, remove any structural barriers that can stop people from getting to these conditions.
Yeah.
For the ILO, there are two aspects to the equalization. The first one, which he also referred, is equitable outcomes, not providing just equal opportunities, which is sometimes I remember from my early childhood. So like you are giving milk to a cat in a plate, soccer, but then you are also giving to a swan also. The swan will not be able to drink that one. So it's not about giving equal opportunity, but outcome should be the same. Both should be able to drink the milk. But another aspect is political, very important for the ILO, is when we always talk about the very important phrase, nothing about us without us. That is very applicable to the ILO, means ILO is the only UN agency which is tripartite, means where the government, employers, and workers from each country, they form policy. So here, in this case, is also at least any other stakeholder which is impacted with the policy, whether it's a women, it is any other disadvantaged group, they should be part of the policy making, planning, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation.
There's a famous saying, the AI won't steal your job. Someone using it will steal it. I personally disagree. AI will steal our job, but AI, people who can use AI will create jobs. So my answer is AI literacy for all.
Nice, and we'll come back to that topic as well.
So for me, I think it's about recognizing that it's not equal. You know, around the world, we've got different geographies. So access is not just at starting point, it's making it education accessible at all parts of our life, because we have people working much longer in their careers, they're changing jobs. So accessibility at every stage is really important, and really thinking of the geography of our world as well.
All right, and to wrap us up on this, I would say it's the removal of barriers to employment and the removal of barriers for employers, and both need to be in the conversation. So many times we talk about employees, we talk about talent, we talk about people that do work, but how often do we talk with them? And the same is for the employers and industry, and it's time for all of us to come to the table together to act to remove those barriers.
Right, now we're gonna move on. We've done well, we just ate into 10 minutes. Vision, rights, and systems foundations. We're going to introduce the values, purpose, and big picture challenges across education, data, skills, and workforce. Ms. Sands, I'm going to come to you first. We're going to shake things up. As work evolves, we, I know you've said, must seize the opportunity to redefine its meaning and ensure it remains a vital part of people's lives. How should talent planning then, how should talent planning challenges be tackled?
I definitely think talent planning should have a refresh. What we are doing today, and many of the conversations that I'm in, is it's looked at with outdated models that are not keeping up with the fast pace of work that we have today. And talent planning models need to have room to grow, have space to look at all the different ways that we find the individuals and the talent that we need for jobs. And it needs to be those flexible strategies, both on the talent side and how we acquire them by looking at the broad range of talent available in the market, from those that may be full-time freelancers, part-time, contingent labor, to those that are also marginalized communities that we might not be tapping into in our own very backyard or globally, that have incredible skills that can help us advance that. And from a company and industry perspective, how are we also showing up with what individuals need to know what type of talent is needed in those pipelines? And that's where AI comes in as an enabler through predictive analytics and through data to get better forecasting for what do we need in the future? Looking with that beginning with the end in the mind, or beginning with the end in mind mindset of how we find the skills that we need for tomorrow and the capabilities in a skills-first economy.
Brilliant. You mentioned marginalized communities. I want to perfectly segue to you, Ms. Rexworthy, especially referring to underrepresented groups. How can inclusive skills systems and employer-led training strategies drive equitable access to opportunities right across sectors, especially for underrepresented groups?
Yeah, I think it's a really big challenge to get industry involved right at the beginning. I think you can have educators coming up with all sorts of solutions, but if industry is not in that driving seat, providing those opportunities and really thinking about the workplace and providing that information, I don't think you can succeed. And we've been really successful in seeing a skills academy model that we set up in the UK many years ago actually be replicated around this region and around other parts of the world, where you really have industry driving that agenda, working really closely with education to make sure that they're at speed with the changes that are happening. And I think without that, it's really difficult to address some of those marginalized groups that really need real jobs, real opportunities at the end of their studies.
Brilliant. Dr. Park, you introduced the concept of DQ, which is digital intelligence, as a new form of human intelligence in this era of AI alongside IQ and EQ. It's become a global standard for digital literacy and skills, and it's been referenced in over 100 countries. What exactly is DQ, and how does it help bridge the digital inclusion gap?
Thank you for the question. While I was listening today's all the wonderful talk, Actually, I wanted to share more fundamental thing. So what is IQ? Right? IQ is human intelligence for industrial age. And it was born early 20th century, 1900s. And that was a time this current education system, the schooling education system, was born. So if you think about this IQ era, means that high IQ means that you're successful in the industrial era. But the thing is that that equation is broken. High IQ means smart, and AI is smarter than us. So we are living in so-called AI era. What does it mean? So this morning, Her Excellency Minister of UAE talked about the paradigm shift. I think it's exactly correct. What does it mean is that we have shifted the era from industrial era to knowledge era to AI era. So what worked before does not work. So when we just think about skill itself, we are just losing the ground. Horse is faster than human, but we do not run against horse. We ride horse. So when we just focusing on the skill is that, hey, you run against horse. How can we make human can be faster than horse? What we need is a new paradigm of human intelligence in this AI era. So when I developed this DQ, I was thinking about, can we make the human intelligence 100x, leveraging technology, but rooted with human value, moral value. A lot of people actually today talk about the moral value. It is not something that is a good to have. It is a must-have. Anybody can have 100x capability with AI. So if you think about generative AI, it democratizes technology, knowledge, and all. So even teenagers in their bedroom can create bioweapon that only can happen in the state-run lab or Harvard lab. That's possible today. So this enormous power is at hands of everyone. So imagine if there's no moral value, it's actually gone. So what we think is that the DQ in digital intelligence is, yes, I will stop.
I'm being the time, please.
Oh, shut up. I think I get the message across.
Brilliant. Dr. Agarwal, that was fascinating. Coming off the back of that, best practices. What global good best practices exist for ensuring skills development issues are both accessible and inclusive?
As I mentioned earlier also, the first point is that at the policy level also, involvement of all stakeholders, particularly those disadvantaged groups, they should be part of it. So multi-stakeholder consultation is very, very important. In many countries, only government makes the policies, they implement the policy, that makes a challenge also. Second is that we keep on talking about lifelong learning system, flexible systems, but in reality, how many countries have this kind of a flexible system? You know, if a person requires a short course training to learn something extra, what facility, person will not even know if this program exists, where the program exists. The guidance system doesn't exist, employment services are not very functional. So, and then funding issue. Who is going to fund those kind of things? So there very good examples are there. So like Singapore, France, they have set up individual learning accounts. So every year you get a amount, then you decide which program as per your requirement you want to do. So, and then skills recognition mobility is very important, irrespective from where you are learning. First, recognition, mobility. That recognition should be valid within the country and outside the country also. And then database monitoring and evaluation system. So, you get really evidence-based what is happening, what is the outcome, what is working, what is not working, and then based on that, providing that feedback loop into the policy. So these are some of the best practices are there.
Thank you. Your Excellency, I want to look at things from the human rights perspective. What role do you think that universities and colleges play in defending the right to education as a human right beyond employability?
Well, thank you for mentioning beyond employability, because All of these great ideas and initiatives should also focus on the relationship between employed people. And this is, or employer and employee, because that's at the core of the relationship between people in general. And I think universities are not just training centers. You don't just go there to get a degree or learn about a skill and then move to work in that field, if people work in the same fields they studied. But it's more of an ecosystem where people, first of all, it's their first step into civic responsibility. They learn about volunteering, they learn about doing social work, and also they get the learning material about principles of human rights and what it means and all of that. And then in some programs, there are customized courses on, for example, ethics, like School of Medicine or teaching and all of that. So if we look at the experience of a student in a university, it's pretty much holistic, ideally, yes, but it kind of prepares that student for the real world in the sense that they get to understand how this endeavor in generally includes, and therefore all of that preparation should have human rights in it, in all of these aspects put together.
Thank you so much. Dr. Al-Dasari, let's talk data and statistics. I spent my entire working life talking about data and stats, being a financial journalist. How can better data and statistics help policymakers both target and measure progress in reducing inequalities?
So the short answer, better data and statistics helps you better measure and identify gaps and inequalities. However, I have to stress that you do need to invest in the quality of the data itself to fully understand the inequalities and also gaps. Technology is changing. The technological advancement is actually key element in using multiple sources of data, administrative records, surveys, in addition to satellite imaging and other sources of data that can help you improve the quality of data. And to your question about the best or international best standards, international standards helps you measure your success compared to other countries, to other regions. And that's where the international standard is very important. My final point here, and it's very important, the local demand is important. So as a statistics office, we produce many statistical products to identify these gaps and also to help policymakers in making their decisions. International community as well, and also local community, they demand more and more of these statistics. So statistics office should be ready with the best quality possible to support these initiatives.
Ben, you've looked at a bit of data in your time. So how do you as an economist approach challenges of global equity and access?
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, I strongly encourage people to invest more and in higher quality in statistics offices. So, getting better at administrative data really starts moving us, because if we can't measure, we don't know, right? But I alluded to some of the research on teaching at the right level, and because of that research and an iterative relationship between the innovators and the implementers and the researchers over multiple countries, that innovation is now benefiting tens of millions of children in dozens of states in India, more than a dozen countries in Africa, and we're really able to take it to a significant scale. And at the same time, we're saving millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars that would have otherwise been invested in things that weren't working, that we thought that seemed at their surface obviously were going to work. But until we had the data, until we've done the work together, we don't know. And so we've avoided wasting resources in that way.
Yeah, I want to move on to exploring what tools can actively create inclusive opportunity. 50 seconds each, or the time police is coming out. Okay? Pam, you say traditional talent acquisition and retention methods are outdated. How do we enhance workforce agility then?
I think it's asking the why question first. And so many organizations and collaborations don't ask that. So what are we trying to accomplish? What is the why? And then look at some other things. Whose workplace is it? That's always important to know from a labor and regulatory perspective. But also, how's the work going to get done and who's going to do that work? And in order to get better at moving us forward at the speed of light for talent planning to meet the needs of business, it's co-creating with data, with digital technology, and everyone in the equation and the ecosystem.
Yeah, well, kept to time. Brilliant. Ms. Rexworthy, we've talked a lot about collaboration today, cross-disciplinary partnerships. What role do international collaboration, public-private partnerships play in building future-ready, sustainable workforces, particularly in emerging economies?
I think that's a really important question. I think what we do at the UK, we have the UK Skills Partnership. We work with a number of education partners within that to provide solutions. So we're looking at kind of not just one option. We look at what's best in the country. So we look at public-private partnership, local, national expertise to actually come in and co-create and use some of the best practice that we've learned, but working across more than one individual organization. This is about co-creation, partnership, collaboration, and then providing solutions that provide people with the core skills that they require to be able to transition in their working life. And I think that's really important, those foundational skills, but co-creation, partnership.
Dr. Park, you spoke earlier about AI won't take your job, but someone using AI will. Give us some practical ways to bridge the growing digital and AI skills gap.
I'll make it 30 seconds this time. So I was actually thinking about on the way here, on the plane, if I were minister of some country, what should I do? Two things. One, change the DNA of education. So no longer IQ is the goal. I call it DQ, but whatever, the new intelligence in the AI age. In order to do that, we talk about lifelong learning for AI literacy. But what do you mean by lifelong learning? Currently, everything works in silo. If I were a minister, break the silo. From born to pass away, before, during, after work, come together. Industry, across country, it has to work together. So benefit is actually emerging country, not developed country, because developed country, all the system is too rigid.
Nice. Dr. Agarwal, I want to move on to solutions and measuring of impact, so important. You look at digitalization globally. What's one tech solution that could be universally adopted to boost employability, and how do we measure its impact?
You know, one tech solution which everyone's mind come easily, and particularly after the COVID time, it became learning management system, digital skills platform. But I will go much beyond that one, power those tools. Because learning systems online can always take place, will always be there. But here I'm going to tell an example of a platform which is not only learning management system, but it is whole managing, assuring the quality of a system. For example, if a country is there, we are talking about lifelong learning, delivering micro-credentials, small programs. Sometimes it could be few hours also. Now, how you will ensure a particular person has gone to a training center, learned this one, or not learned this one? How you ensure that training is taking place in a remote area somewhere? So now India has established SID, which is called Skills India Digital Hub. Now I went there a control room center. I asked, okay, take me to, and India is a big country, 1.4 billion people. How you monitor that one? They have more than 20, 30,000 training centers, which they are providing funding to improve. At a click of one, immediately on the screen, they could see what is happening currently in a particular training center. So all training centers are linked. Now they have placed special cameras which can tell you, is it a is it just a dummy photo or is really person is working there or not? Then they have linked every person. When a person is doing, there is a digitized version of this one. That really that person, for how long that person has remained. So I'm just giving one example of this one. Yeah, I'll stop here. So that's what I'm saying. This kind of, we have to go beyond learning management system. We have to go look into the whole system management through the digitalization.
Yeah, right. Your Excellency, I want to get a sense of how we can learn from what's happening here in Saudi Arabia. What lessons can be drawn from your nation's approach to aligning human rights principles with education and economic opportunity?
Well, education is just one feature of it, because Vision 2030, for example, is a national transformation vision that covers all aspects, and it's basically a human-centered vision. 2/3 actually of the programs in the vision are centered around human rights specifically. And the others eventually will benefit people's rights. So education and access to education and all of the aspects pertaining to the human-centered angle to education is based on, first of all, does education teach human rights? And this is what we've been working with the Ministry of Education on for a couple of years now, and it is progressing very well. And also the other side is the operational level or side of education, which means measuring equal access for people with disability, bullying issues, also covering all levels of education to all and all of that. But if you look at a national level, a program like this one is an example that I have never seen anywhere else, because it's a national program that literally exemplifies what it means to have education at the center of a national transformation journey. So it starts with early education, early development, and then supports the family of children in helping them engage more with the educational system and all of that, until the lifelong learning. And in the middle, of course, it covers the upskilling, reskilling, people with disability, their definition, and all of that. So this is what Saudi Arabia is going through nowadays. This program has been on for 3-4 years now, but eventually we will see the outcomes, inshallah, in the near future, before 2030.
I'm going to be told off. I'm going to give Dr. Al-Dosari a quick question. How can we use stats, Dr. Al-Dosari, to direct funding to the most undeserved regions or demographics? I promise you I'll close after this.
It's always challenging for statistics offices to cover smaller areas in any country. In Saudi Arabia, we invested heavily in producing data and statistics on a regional level, reaching around 1,000 indicators. As I mentioned, we use satellite imaging to go to 100 by 100 square meter and understand access to services, access to education, all of these important indicators. So the relevant departments would use this data, which is available also on our website, to actually build their funding strategies. I'll stop here to give you some time.
I have to leave it, otherwise I'll be screaming. You don't know what's happening in my ear right now. There's screaming, throwing of pans, all sorts of stuff. But you gave a brilliant scene setting. But thank you so much. And I want to give a big round of applause to our fantastic panelists. I wish we had more time. Thank you so much.